Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown for the week of March 12th, 2018. My name's Trey, this is the Full Spectrum, this is my living room, and let's get started. We start off this week with Noah's Notes 1, Fossil from the Future, and this is a really fun series already. I love it. I'm a little concerned that a lot of the mystery is going to be taken out in the explanations. Because as cool as the explanation at the end of this chapter was, I was a bit concerned that would be repeated every chapter. I hope that some chapters are okay with leaving things mysterious, for a little bit, at least. I love Noah Minami Umberbach. He is great. He's a really cool main character. And Kotobuki is okay. I don't dislike her that much, but I'm also not really feeling her yet. I feel like that could change as time passes, but, I really loved this. I mean, I don't even really want to give a full, story breakdown of this, because I want you to read this yourself. That's how much I enjoyed it. But, Noah Minami Umberbach coming in a helicopter, holding the helicopter pilot at gunpoint, and then breaking through a window to threaten a student to evacuate the classroom so he could have a conversation with Kotobuki. I love that this secret society has a member like him. Because you can see that they just have to clean up for him all the time. He's always doing this. We find out about this fossil that came from the future, but was in the past. Everything leads up to this big moment of they are underground in a subterranean cavern under Yokohama Station in a really cool panel that leads to a keyhole where they use the fossil to open the keyhole, and that reveals a panel, and Noah hits the panel, and it turns out they're in an elevator because they were in a skyscraper, and they get all the way down at the bottom, and it's Yokohama. Specifically, it's the Minato Mirai district, the commercial district in Yokohama, from our world, because that world was destroyed or ruined, basically, 100,000 years ago, or 100,004 years ago, in the year 2022. I was just immediately sold. I was like, yeah, let's go. That's great. I love it. Give me more. Come on. I love the idea of loop theory already. It's a theory that I think is very interesting. It's a theory that, although I don't personally think it's true, I think that it is a really cool setting for a story, and I love it. Loop theory is awesome. And seeing Noah, his whole goal is to stop the destruction from happening again, and that's why he's so gung-ho about everything. That's awesome. I'm really happy about that. I cannot wait to see where this series goes. I hope it doesn't get dropped like most Jumpstart series do, from Weekly Shonen Jump through Viz. There's that panel at the beginning with Kotobuki where she's talking about how, if you're reading this, the professor's probably already dead. I hope that that's not a giveaway that the professor's dead in the series, because for all we know, he could just be missing. He could have gone into any timeline. Who knows with this series, with the way it's going so far. I also really like that Kotobuki's not a big fan of history, because I love history, and I study history, and seeing her take on it and how it's useless for her and none of the teachers being able to give her a good answer, but then Noah being able to give her a good answer, telling her that history is about what people have done. It's a unique tool we humans have. It allows us to learn from our predecessors and become better people and get around mistakes that were made by them by just paying attention to what they did and the way they handled things. And yeah, you may never be in a situation like Cao Cao, where you're going down the river of Chirbi toward Redcliffe, and you're faced with a massive wind and a fire attack that sets your boats on fire. You may never have that, but you may be in a situation where you're completely confident you're going to win, and all of a sudden things start going against you, and you go, maybe we should take a step back and look at this from another perspective, because remember what happened at Redcliffe. That's what history does. And to see Noah honestly love history and be trying to teach that to Kotobuki, that's great. I love that. I absolutely adore that. I really love Noah's Notes. Looking forward to more of it. Really hope that it stays in Weekly Shonen Jump and that it stays as good as this. There were a lot of really good gags this chapter as well. Really like Noah as a character. Really looking forward to more. I'm sorry, I'm recovering from being sick, and my voice is almost back, but all this talking is getting rid of it. Next up, we have One Piece 897, Pickham's Cacao Island Escape Plan. Before we get into this chapter, I want to preface this by saying a lot of people didn't like this chapter. I am not as negative on this chapter as people that I've seen, but I will give my honest opinion as we go through. Before the point gets brought up of you can't judge this because you haven't seen how the arc ends, I can only judge this week by week. That's all I know how to do. Because the arc's not over yet. At the end of the arc, I'll have an arc review, since it's the first arc since I've been reviewing One Piece. But I forgot to put my phone on silent. But I'm not going to hold back on my opinions on this chapter any more than I would on Black Clover or Boruto or Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I still believe that there is value in judging every chapter every week, based on the chapter itself and not just the arc. So with that said, we have Peckham's attempted Sulong, which is like Sulong. I got super hyped as soon as he talked about it. I was like, yeah, man, Peckham's, and the fact that, Pedro was the only one that can bring him out of it, which means he's about to go beast form. Unfortunately, that doesn't turn out to be that way. He tries to turn Sulong. Oven attacks him. And Oven attacks him for a good reason, because he's furious that he threatened Brule. But this basically takes Peckham's down, and Peckham's is on the ground, and Luffy is trying to escape, and Raisin comes after him, and then Sanji shows up and takes out Raisin. But then they go to crush Peckham's eyes, so that he can't see the moon anymore, which I'm sure just basically means they're going to stab him in the eye. And when Sanji's distracted, worried about Peckham's, some moonwalking, not moonwalking like Michael Jackson, but skywalking like, Sanji, enemies attack him, and they take him out, pretty much. He's down, and is on the ground now with everybody else. And the reason people are... Would you stop that? I'm trying to record. You're making noise playing with that box. Cats. The reason people are so upset by this, and I'm kind of upset too, is that we'd all been waiting for Sanji just to go out there and wreck shop to get Luffy. And yes, this is more realistic, but Sanji let himself get distracted like that, and now Luffy's asleep. And that was all done because this is an overwhelming force, of course. But it was all done so that the Germa could show up. And yeah, it was cool having the Germa show up. It was. I won't deny that. I thought it was really cool seeing them show up. It's a little weird that they left the other way and then swung back around to Cacao Island to help Luffy and them. And it's not that they wanted to help Luffy. I guarantee you that's not the reason they came back. They clearly stated in this chapter that they came back for payback on Big Mom. Most likely on Judge's orders because he's furious he got betrayed. And this is the time to do that. It makes perfect sense. Big Mom is really weakened. She's not on Cacao Island. All of basically Big Mom's people are here. This is the time to do that. I just wish that Sanji had actually got a chance to fight a little bit, instead of just immediately get taken down after he took out Raisin. Luffy falling asleep? Yeah, that makes sense. I was kind of hoping that Luffy would use Conqueror's Haki or something, but Luffy is beat. Luffy is down. Luffy is out because of his fight with Katakuri. And he's not going to be able to fight any more people this arc, really. He may try, but I don't think he's going to get very far with that. Peckham's being almost completely worthless is a thing that really upset a lot of people, and kind of upset me too. Like, his whole thing is, he's got the turtle fruit, right? The Kamakama no Mi? So why didn't he just, block? Why didn't he, you know what I mean? He's proved that he can go in his shell before. If he really wanted to make a big deal out of it, why didn't he go into his shell, bring Luffy inside his shell, and then have Sanji kick him? And yeah, maybe that wouldn't have worked. There's a million different ways maybe that wouldn't have worked, but this is not the way that I wanted this to turn out, and it is the way it turned out, unfortunately. I still enjoyed the chapter. I still had a good time seeing Germa show up, and seeing everything going on. Sanji taking out Raisin. That was really cool. But man, I don't know, just the way everything went with Peckham's and not going Sulong. And maybe I shouldn't have gotten hyped for Sulong, but when Peckham says that Pedro was the only one that can stop him, I was like, well, here we go. Peckham's is going to go beast mode out there, and Luffy and Sanji are going to get away. And that, of course, was not the case. So next up, we have the Promised Neverland 78, one down. We get to see kind of a reversal of fortunes as the kids chase down the demon as he runs. Then he pleads for his life. Gillian turns his own lines on him. And when Luce tries to call everything just a game that they were doing, Gillian basically has had enough. She shoots him. Before she shoots him, though, he mentions his daddy. That's going to come back up again somewhere. Some demon somewhere is real upset that Luce is dead once they find out, and that's going to come back to hurt people. I'm feeling that already. Nos and Noma take out Sandy's gun, and Sandy and them lead him away to a trap. Trap's very obvious, but it's intended to be so, to make him more cautious. And Sandy has a gun that can punch through Nos and Noma's masks, but they have 5 shots. It's not a lot, considering they have Nos and Noma, Bayan, and Luvis left. So, there's only 1 shot they can miss. We'll see how it goes, though, because I'm excited to see how the fights turn out. But this was a really fun chapter. Getting to see Luce on the ground, whining and begging for his life was really cool after all the punishment and pain he's put people through. So, I enjoyed it. Next up, we have Black Clover 148, Until Now. We get a lot of flashbacks in Licht's life, seen through somebody's eyes. We found out later that's Patoli. Patry, depending on your translation. We don't actually get to see the name this chapter, so I can't give you the official translation. Licht meets a human with a 4-leaf clover in all this, and Licht and Tessia have a kid. We also see the humans attack the elves. Then we get to see Licht casting a mass reincarnation spell, and Patoli reincarnated into William's body and called himself Licht. And the Licht that we know is Patoli. That's the Licht that we know. Which means that Patoli wound up looking like Licht because without the curse, William looked like Licht, which is very coincidental. And I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not super jazzed about it. But it's a cool idea. The resurrection to try and save his people kind of thing from Licht. So does that mean the one that just woke up is the real Licht? Is Yuno the reincarnation of the kid? Is that why he happens to also have blade magic and wind magic? Kind of like, I mean, he kind of has blade magic. He mainly has wind magic, but he's used the wind as blades before. Like Licht and Tessia? Is that why? And does that mean that Asta has Licht Grimoire? Because the witch made the comment that the leader of the elves used to have that grimoire? And if so, does that mean that the demon that's taking over Asta is actually Licht? And not the thing that just woke up? Like, there's a lot of questions that have been brought forth by this, and I don't know how I feel about it. But, you know, it was fine, I guess. It's very coincidental that William looked like Licht. And it also makes things a lot sadder when you consider that, like, Raya and the others that were with him that weren't just human. Like, that's not the real Licht for them. And all those times where Licht was like, yeah, I care about you. No, he didn't, because he wasn't even Licht. He's Patoli, and he has a gigantic grudge. Like, that's kind of sad. So we'll see where it goes from here. It would make a lot of sense for Yuno to be the reincarnation of Licht, and that's why he's so strong. Or not, maybe just kid. He's the kid, not reincarnation, but the kid of Licht. I don't know how the timeline works with that. I don't know how long it's been. But for all I know, Asta's their kid. Pfft, who knows? But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anytime you throw kids from very powerful enemies that actually weren't enemies, but the enemy was the reincarnation of somebody else who just happened to look like that enemy, and the enemy was actually just a nice guy who did a big resurrection move because he got betrayed, Like, it just makes everything a lot more complicated. Not in a good way. So next up we have Food Wars 254, Feast and Famine. We get to see Tsukasa feeling bad for the expelled, that are going to be expelled after he wins, and talking about how the work that Ishiki and Megishima would have been doing will now be added to his plate, but he wants to perfect his craft, so he's got to do it. He's got to work for Azami. We also get to see Azami being proud of Tsukasa, and him being kind of annoyed by that praise. And then we get a flashback to the large amount of work that Tsukasa was given while all he wants to focus on is cooking, and all the other seats backing him up, helping him. That's really cool to me that we got to see that, because all the seats have kind of been against each other for a while now. Well, kind of against each other as the group is torn. And it was really cool to see them all working together. Mostly working together. The big thing about this chapter, though, is that we get to see Tsukasa. And we get to really get a feel for him as a character. And we needed this before this big confrontation, so we could get a better feel for him. Not just as this impossibly good chef, but also as a guy who wants people to be able to enjoy his cooking. He wants them to understand the amount of work he puts into his cooking, and none of the people that he's feeding at these banquets do. And we see Azami just like cut to the root of it, that none of the pigs out there were reached by his passion. And that upsets Tsukasa. And so clearly, he's shooting for perfection and he wants to hit that goal. He doesn't just want to give up part way. And then next week we get to see Rendo's dish. And she seemed a little bit out of it. So we'll see how that goes. Next up we have Jujutsu Kaisen on 2, Secret Execution. We get to see Itadori wake up, and Satoru Gojo has set up his secret execution. We flash back to Fushiguro, and Itadori talking, and Gojo testing him. Basically the test is just for Itadori to give over to Sukuna, which is the name of the curse that's in him, and for 10 seconds, and then after 10 seconds if he can take back control. And he does, so it seems like he can control it. We also see that Gojo was buying souvenirs, and Fushiguro, makes the comment that he was buying these souvenirs while people were dying. And it really tells us what kind of character, it tells us who Satoru Gojo is. He's a person that's used to death. He's a person that he's not going to stop because of it now. And so he's going to live his life his way. And that honestly, I felt a lot more clear about his motives than I did for either Itadori or Fushiguro, just from that one comment about buying souvenirs. We see Fushiguro pleading so that Itadori doesn't have to die, so they suspend Itadori's execution. It turns out there's 20 fingers in all, because Sukuna has 4 arms, and Gojo wants to feed all of them to Itadori and then kill him once he has them all. This is a really cool idea. And, of course, once it gets brought up to Itadori, who after what his grandpa told him only has one choice to make, he agrees to do it. He'd already decided to die well, and what better way could there be to gather all these curses into himself and die to save the world, Yeah. So now he's heading off to school, to the Jujutsu Kaisen, and we'll have 3 classmates, so we'll get to be introduced to either 2 new characters and spend some more time with Fushiguro, or we'll get introduced to 3 new characters. Either way, I'm excited. I really like Satoru Gojo. He's a really cool character. Gojo is great. And, we'll see how it goes. I'm still not really feeling Itadori at all. He's kind of bland. But, maybe he'll flesh himself out over the next couple chapters. Which, honestly, we only have one more with him before it's moved out of Jump. So, Jump starts. What can you do? Next up, we have My Hero Academia 174, Golden Tips Imperial. Deku was, in fact, pulled from the stage team. And despite really wanting to dance for Eri, his new job is actually pretty cool. He's going to be moving Aoyama around as Aoyama is the disco ball. They talk about how people will phase the disco ball out of their stop noticing it completely after a couple moments. So if it moves around, then they'll keep noticing it, which will add to the atmosphere. We get to see Deku still training with All Might, who we find out All Might couldn't really control his power that well at first either, but kind of in the opposite way of Deku. Where Deku was going all out and breaking stuff, All Might was going out and not. But he was going all out from the get-go. And Deku has a moment where he thinks about this, where, All Might seems like he had more talent to be a hero from the get-go. And it makes me wonder what All Might was doing before he got the quirk. Like, what kind of person was he that he could take these blows? And maybe that's not even true. Maybe All Might was breaking stuff all the time, but he doesn't want to tell Deku that because he wants to give Deku a goal to reach for. Regardless, All Might still is a great character, and this was a really fun conversation between them. It also gets exacerbated by the fact that Hatsume shows up and talks about how one of her babies will work just perfectly as a support item for Deku. And All Might and Deku have a conversation about support items and how All Might tried them at one point, but because he's always in the thick of things, the support items would often break. The best part about this chapter to me is Izuku desperately searching the web to find pictures of All Might, or Rare Might, as he calls them, because they're rare pictures, with the support gear on, and being super upset when he doesn't know about it, and he can't find them, and there's no videos of them. Because what kind of fan is he if he doesn't know about this, right? He accidentally clicks on the T video, and it's, for a second, it looks like it's the end of the world for him that he accidentally clicked on this video, with Gentle, which allows us to cut to Gentle, who claims that attacking the school will make the kids stronger. So maybe he's not doing this. I mean, we've always seen him as a bad guy that's doing things to try and make people realize. Like he's stealing expired pudding and stuff like that and attacking convenience stores. So he's never really been a villain, even though he's a villain. He's breaking the law, but he wants to help people. So he's a really interesting character. We also see that he has his whole route staked out, where he will stop and have tea for a long time, and he spent a lot of time focusing on his plan to drink that tea, the Golden Tips Imperial, and then has almost no time spent on after he gets into UA and what he's going to do after he climbs a tree and jumps a wall. Other than the fact that La Brava will be the linchpin, we find out that La Brava was a crazed fan. We kind of already knew that, but now we got confirmation. And then she tells him how much she loves him, and he says, and you, La Brava. And so, he accepts her. Whether he actually feels that way or not, I don't know. But he accepts her feelings at least. And maybe he's just using her. But it seems like they've probably been partnered up for a while. So, who knows? Maybe he's not. Maybe he actually means it. Either way, I like these characters a lot. This was a really fun chapter, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Next up, we have Hunter x Hunter 377, Scheme. We get to see Kacho working hard, and we get to see Melody and Kini are in an agreement. They want to use Fugetsu's ability to get Kacho and Fugetsu out of this, but they still don't know Kacho's ability, and it's tough to get the two together because of everything going on. Kacho wants to have a concert with Fugetsu, or Fufu as she calls her, there, so that they can spend a little bit of time together and probably plan. Meanwhile, the Phantom Troop. Yeah. Oh man, I love it every time I get to say meanwhile the Phantom Troop. Have gathered in the dining hall. Illumi has been inducted, and he's playing tag with Hisoka. He introduces himself and says he joined the Spiders on Hisoka's commission to kill Hisoka. And if Hisoka paid him to do this, there's only one reason he would have done so. It's because Hisoka wants to kill all the Spiders, which means Hisoka wants to fight Illumi. That's my assumption. It's also possible, I suppose, that Hisoka put Illumi in there to be a mole for him and to attack the others at some point, but I highly doubt that. Hisoka, as much as he loves to mess around with people, wants to kill the Spiders himself. He's made that abundantly clear. Killing Kortopi and Shalnart was the real start to that. And he wants to kill the rest of them because he wants to make Chrollo as angry as possible so that he can fight Chrollo at his best. And with that said, fighting Illumi would be probably a fun fight for Hisoka. So, I could see that happening. They're interrupted by some Mafia guys saying that this is their table. And the Mafia clearly states that if people weren't watching, they just let this go. They have a reputation to make, or to keep, you understand. And they even offer to help the Spider after they move. Chrollo does leave, but basically as soon as they're walking away, all that kindness they had is gone. And they basically threaten the Phantom Troop, which is a huge mistake, by the way. You shouldn't do that. Chrollo tells the group to do as they please, to break off, find Hisoka, and once they have his head, they'll have a party. Shizuku and Bonolenov team up with Chrollo and tend to disguise themselves to look for Hisoka because their powers wouldn't be that great up against Hisoka in a straight fight. Then Shizuku breaks the fourth wall by bringing up how Chrollo's book is like a death note. Yeah, I really love this chapter. It's a lot of fun. Seeing the Phantom Troop doing stuff, going to look for Hisoka, breaking off from each other. That's exactly what Hisoka wants them to do, because now he can take them out one by one. And I'm excited to see that begin to happen. I really want to see that fight between Feitan and Hisoka. I want that fight so badly. So, next up we have Robot Laser Beam 48. Rival. Suzaku loves golf. So much so that he calls himself a hero for golf, to bring golf back to Japan and make it popular again. And he asks that someone here become his rival. Robo chooses not to talk to him yet. Wants to focus on his own match. And Ginro, gets fired up because he wants to be the rival. He and Robo meet up while running, and they talk about being rivals. And they talk about how Ginro wanted to be Yozan's rival, but Yozan only sees Robo as his rival. Suzaku also wants to be Yozan's rival. So we get a lot of really interesting conversations here about rivalry and what it means to people. Being recognized as the rival is probably the biggest thing for some of these people, because they want to be able to stand on that world stage with Yozan Miura. And if he recognizes them, then that means they've made it. And so seeing him recognize Robo, who's not there yet, is like an insult to them. So it makes perfect sense that, they want to be Robo's rival, or they want Robo to become their rival so that they can be on that level with Yozan Miura. This eventually turns into a competition, and the two of them wind up racing, but it's time for their match, so they gotta stop the race. They're already worn out, but it doesn't matter, because the first day begins. Next up, we have Dr. Stone 49 to the present. Hyoga congratulates them on breaking his spear and the betrayal of Gin and everything going so well, but reveals their attack was a diversion, and the village is on fire now. Because Homura, Hyoga's right hand, remember Hyoga is Tsukasa's right hand, set the fire, and the plan is to grab kids as they run away from the fire as hostages, so that then Senku has to give up. That's dirty, but it's clever. Senku is trying to fight this fire, he's trying to deal with all this, and Suika decides to make herself a target to draw Hyoga and the rest away, because she's a kid. She leads them towards the sulfur dioxide spring. And Senku and Kuhaku run after her to save her. Suika's being very brave here. And this could have gone very badly for her, because she very easily could have died. But at the last minute, well, not the last minute, but close to the last minute, Senku calls out to her as they reach her and tell her to get up. And so she gets into the tree to get away from it. And this also, by calling out to her, tips off Hyoga and Homura, and they jump up into the tree as well, into a different tree, but still. The lunkheads, as I'm calling them, try to climb up into the tree as well, and when they call Senku out on this, saying that he made this poison, Hyoga decides to test it by knocking them off the tree. They, of course, die. And that makes them the first people that we've seen killed in this manga, not dying of, disease or something, but straight up killed. And Hyoga compliments Senku, telling him that, he's created a completely formidable kingdom here, but he still believes they can win. And Hyoga and Homura leave. Back in the village, townspeople aren't even upset that everything burned down. They're just happy nobody died, which tells us just exactly how rough things are in this world. And they celebrate Suika's bravery. Then Senku tells them that they've made it back to the present with his next invention. So who knows what this next thing is going to be. But I'm excited, and I can't wait to see what Senku's got up his sleeves. This was a really good chapter. I loved seeing the poisons spring come back, the sulfur dioxide spring, and using it as a weapon. Super clever. If he hadn't had to warn Suika, then they would have gotten Hyoga and Homura from this as well, because they wouldn't have realized what was going on in time. So it's really clever. Finally, for this week, we have We Never Learned 54. At times, an elder's pride is in direct opposition to X's circumstances. We get a cover page of Best Girl Kurisu and some White Day jokes. And then we get to the story itself for this chapter, which is Asumi heading out to clean as part of her maid cafe job. It's a new service they're offering, and Yuiga going along to help her because he's Yuiga. The first place to get to is Kurisu. Kurisu, best girl, as some might call her. She tries to bribe them away, then notices Yuiga and grabs his hand, yes, his hand, and pulls him into the apartment after asking for 30 minutes. 30 minutes later, Asumi is allowed in to clean, but the place is spotless. And so, Asumi leaves. Next they get to Urika's place, but, although Takamoto is surprised, when they go to try to work, she's so freaked out that Yuiga is there, she does all the work herself. Even makes a nice meal that they all sit down to eat. So they leave there and get to Furuhashi's house, who has a destroyed kitchen because she was cooking again and failing at it. She realizes that she cannot let a boy, she didn't say Yuiga, she said a boy, see her destroyed kitchen and let him know, speaking of Yuiga, that she can't cook. Because that would be extremely embarrassing, and she doesn't want to admit that. Because she knows that Yuiga has this idea of her, and she doesn't want to break that. And we get to see Yuiga, in fact, having that idea of her and going, I wonder why Furuhashi needs help cleaning. I really enjoyed that. That was a really fun exchange, as she knew exactly what he would be thinking. Again, I'm just saying that if not for Kurisu, Furuhashi would be best girl. That's all I'm saying. She tries to bribe him away again, but this time when Asumi tries to push that she needs to be able to clean, because Furuhashi must be hungry, Ogata shows up with 3 orders of udon, and so they all eat. And then Asumi is still angry that she didn't get to clean, so she cleans Yuiga's house instead, and his siblings really like her. They're asking when he's gonna marry her. To repay him for the day, she offers to clean his ears by letting him sit his head on her lap. And then, of course, teases him a little bit more, because, she's Asumi, that's what she does. The next day, the girls ask Yuiga if he knew Asumi was working as a maid, and when he tries to hee-haw about it, Furuhashi gives him that look. The don't lie to me, Yuiga look. This was a blast of a chapter. We got to see all the girls, in little bits. There weren't as many gags, because most of it was fun being poked at Asumi or at the other girls, because they didn't know Yuiga was going to be showing up. But it was kind of funny that Kurisu's was the opposite, that if it had just been Yuiga, she would have been fine, but because it was Asumi, she didn't want her to see. It was a lot of fun. This was a really good chapter, and it was a nice change of pace after all the progression we've been getting, to just have some time for everybody to get to unpack a little bit. So with that, we move into the lightning round. Noah's Notes 1, Foster from the Future, 2 thumbs up. Very much enjoyed this intro chapter. It was a blast. Looking forward to more. Love the focus on history. It is tailor-made for me, basically, so I will keep reading it for sure. Lots of fun. Only thing I didn't really like is all the fan service with Kotobuki, but at the same time, I could put up with that for as much fun as No One Knows is, since most anime has fan service. Somebody's going to be like, most anime? Really, Trey? A lot of anime don't have fan service. You're right. A lot of them don't, but a lot of them do. And a lot of them don't have stories so far as good as the first chapter of Noah's Notes. That's all I'm saying. One Piece 897, Peckham's Cacao Island Escape Plan. I am, in fact, going to give this one thumb down. I thought this chapter was fine for what it was trying to do, but I didn't like at all how quickly Peckham's went out. Although I did enjoy the Germa showing up, because it makes sense for them to be there. I also didn't enjoy Sanji getting taken out by this mook, and because he was distracted because he was looking at Peckham's, and the fact that, they're going for Peckham's eyes, and that's a perfectly good plan. They're doing everything by the book. It still didn't work for me. I don't know. Next up, Promised Neverland 78, 1 down, 1 thumb up. Really fun chapter. We got that mention of Daddy. We're going to see how all that goes. Very excited to see where it goes from here. The gun probably will miss twice. So we have 3 bullets left and have to decide who they're going to use them on. Next up, we have Black Clover 148. Until now, I don't even know what to give this one. I don't even know how to feel about this one. I don't even know what I think about all these twists yet. I delayed recording this a day so I would have time just to think about Black Clover 148. The twist is there. I don't know if it's a good twist, so I'm going to go completely even on this one. But I do think that it's always fun when Black Clover goes a mile a minute and never slows down, I guess. So, yeah. Next up, Food Wars 254, Feast and Famine. One thumb up. We really needed this Tsukasa backstory. For all the stuff I've said about flashbacks before that felt out of place, this one did not feel out of place at all. We did need this Tsukasa backstory, and it was a lot of fun. Next up, Jujutsu Kaisen 2, Secret Execution. I'm going to give this one a thumb up. I really like Satoru Gojo. I still really don't like Itadori that much, but for the most part, it's fine. We'll see how it goes. He's now eaten 2 of the fingers, so, hey, he'll just keep getting stronger as long as he keeps eating, I guess. Next up, we have My Hero Academia 174, Golden Tips Imperial. I'm going to give this one a thumb up as well. I really like Gentle, and I really like La Brava. I really liked the conversation with Deku and All Might. There were some slow parts in this chapter, but for the most part, this was a really fun chapter. Hunter x Hunter 377 Scheme is also getting a thumb up. Phantom Troop, as always, is great. The stuff with Melody and Kacho was cool, but I will hold off on any big hype until I see how all this is going to begin to move. Robot Laser Beam 48, Rival. I'm going to give this one a thumbs up as well. The talk about rivals and the way that the rivalry works was really fun, and, reminds me why I love Rivals so much. Dr. Stone 49 to the present. I'm going to also give this one a thumbs up. I feel like everything's just getting one thumb up this week, because this was a really fun chapter, although there were a couple of moments where I was like, okay, well, that's a decision the characters can make. Like the fact that when we cut to Senku, after Hamura has been shown setting fire to things, Senku is putting out the fire. It's like, well, yeah, that's you should be putting out the fire, but Hyoga's still right there, and so are all those guys. Like, I feel like you should probably be, I don't know. But for the most part, this was a really fun chapter, and Suika was really brave, so that's good. And then finally, We Never Learned 54. At times, an Elder Sprite is in direct opposition to extra circumstances. I'm gonna give it a thumb up. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Lots of good gags. Looking forward to more. As always, this has been Trey. This has been Trey. This has been the Full Spectrum, and my living room, and Waluigi, who died over there yesterday. Got to figure out a way to bring him back. I've got a Phoenix down around here somewhere. But with all that said, we'll be back next week with another exciting episode of the Weekly Shonen Jump Breakdown. Remember to always enjoy the Full Spectrum. The Jump has to offer.